Coming up this week on the Special Chronicles Show, episode 440, we're on the road to Special Olympics 2022 USA Games with Special Olympics Florida athlete Daniel Fundora joining us in conversation, talking about his Special Olympics story, the 2022 USA Games, and inclusion. All that is coming up this week on SpecialChronicles.com. The mission of how I started podcasting and started Special Chronicles is giving respect and voice to those of us with special needs. I became an athlete leader of Special Olympics Illinois, and when I recorded the audio of the speeches that I was given and putting those up as podcasts, I soon received messages of encouragement, and I learned that it was a powerful platform and really helping to make a difference in people's lives. 12 years ago, I didn't expect that anybody would want to even listen to me. We have over 42,316 listeners per month. It's a humbling experience. I'm really grateful to make a difference in other people's lives.
This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
Podcasting since 2008. This is a show where we're broadcasting disability stories from an insider's perspective, and we are giving a voice to people with special needs. This is your weekly guide to find and joy, acceptance, and inclusion.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome back to the Special Chronicles Show. My name is Daniel Fundora of Special Chronicles and Sun's Rival International Global Messenger of Special Olympics. So excited to be back for another week on the program today. So excited to welcome the guests that I connected with. By the time you guys hear this, because we're pre-taping this a month early, but about 6-7 months ago we first got connected, and then thanks to our guest today being one of the hundreds or so of you that are on our newsletter or email list on SpecialChronicles.com reached out to be a guest, and it was something that I already got connected with. And those are bigger reason why we're having him on the show. If you couldn't tell, if you just listen to the podcast, go check out the video on YouTube or Facebook, and you'll see a Special Olympics 2022 USA Games virtual background behind me. So that gives you a hint of why we're bringing on the guest today. But first, a few housekeeping things to get out of the way. First, the Special Chronicles Show is presented by the ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program. Learn more about the nation's first energy efficiency program taught by people with disabilities, including video resources and original podcast series and external resource links at SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. Again, that's SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. And help us fund the weekly podcast and live shows on Special Chronicles so we can continue to tell empowering stories like you're about to hear Daniel's our guest, I didn't even say his name yet, but behind the microphone, the photo, mission, and vision, giving respect and voice to people with special needs. Please join our community of supporters and make a gift today. SpecialChronicles.com/give. Again, that's SpecialChronicles.com/give. It goes a long way. And at the $250 gift level to this podcast, Tim Shive will send you a free autographed copy of his new book, The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. Once again, text GIVE 250 to 833-953-2598, or you can donate online at SpecialChronicles.com/give. And it really goes a long way. And now, and SpecialChronicles.com is where you can go to subscribe to all of our podcasts, live shows, read blogs and columns that I've written, and subscribe to our newsletter on there too, SpecialChronicles.com. But now, please put your virtual hands together as we welcome to the Special Chronicles Show, and I'll remind you again how I first connected with him off air about, as I said, 6-7 months ago. And now, thanks to him replying, if you guys are on our Special Chronicles newsletter list, then at the bottom of that newsletter that I sent out, that we signed out as Special Chronicles, there was a link to how you can access my calendar to request a time to be on the podcast. And that's what our guest did today. So please put your virtual hands together as we, on this episode, begin our Special Olympics 2022 USA Games podcast series. And what better way to begin the series? I know a few other athletes in New York and Pennsylvania. No, New York and Virginia. Where is he from? Virginia. New York and Virginia, who else are going to be competing at the USA Games. But what better way to begin the series than with, since it's going to happen in Orlando in 2022, June 2022, what better place to begin than in an athlete from the home state of where our national games will be taking place. And that is Special Olympics Florida athlete Daniel Fundora. Please put your virtual hands together as we welcome Daniel to the Special Chronicles Show. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for having me there. Thank you so much. I'm very humbled to be here, and I can't wait to talk about what my story is all about.
Yeah, and just so our listeners know, both of us are not talking to ourselves when we say Daniel. We just both happen to have the same name. So, yeah.
Oh, good.
We first got connected 6-7 months ago when I think her name's Lila at Special Olympics International connected us through email. I was just before going on air. I just going back through some of the emails from 6-7 months ago, and I think it was Lila that introduced both of us. And I forgot the reason why then, but now fast forward to July 2021, you had read one of the newsletters that we sent out. You on our Special Chronicles mailing list, and in that mailing list that we sent out was a link to if you want to be a guest on this podcast. And so you scheduled a time on my calendar for after the 4th of July, and here we are on the podcast together. And what we'll get to later on in the show, and I'm going to we'll tease our listeners a little bit, but there's a connection that you have with the upcoming USA Games, and you told me right before going on air, but then I ended up also seeing a video that you produced. But first, before we get into all of that, we'll keep our listeners on the edge of those seats to want to tune in. But first, briefly introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us disability that you were diagnosed with, your connection to our disability community, and your role in our Special Olympics movement.
Okay. So can you repeat that question again? You mean what kind of diagnosis I have?
Yeah. What disability diagnosis you have, and and your connection to Special Olympics.
Okay, great. Well, I diagnosed in autism spectrum is this high functioning. I diagnosed since 3 years old, and can I give you like a little bit story? Like ever since then, when I look back, I realized that I didn't know myself a little bit. It's like it's like when during the beginning of my time, right? It's like it's hard to connect one way or other. It's hard to socialize things, and it's hard to grow as a person, it's and not only that is also difficult to get development. Like I really struggle with my speech therapy and making friends with socializing and able to communicate and also behaving as well, because I know today's society with disabilities, it's easy to get struggle with disabilities behavior situation. That's like one of the main factors, but it's not always a case with mental health. But also the time that when I was like about 5 or 6 years old, or I think like about, hey, I can't remember. I used to be overweight, and I was overweight my entire life. And it's been really tough. Well, that time, like I'm gonna say this, and right before that happened, I did join Special Olympics when I was about 11 years old. Started with the sport called bowling, right? That was my very first sport, which is bowling. That was like a very first sport, and I went through from middle school and high school, and then I stopped doing Special Olympics for a while because I just thought I could doing something else. But unfortunately, after the age of 22 years old, it just got really tougher, and I got to the point where I was supposed to be in school, or I was supposed to go to college, or I was supposed to do something about my career. But unfortunately, that didn't happen, and I decided to join Special Olympics, and and that's and I want to say, yeah, I joined Special Olympics just to keep myself busy, being productive, and to see if Special Olympics was going to be for me. And then when I came back, right, I started off with athletics, field, and then it was
What?
it was golf, and then later I got involved with softball, and then what happened is, to be honest, I never won a championship before. I never won like a gold medal before,
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
and I wanted to say the moment that happened, I would say on the day November 17, 2012, I would say the day of state competition, like after I went to games, right? It's not just I won a gold medal. You know how Special Olympics really started to change my life since 2012, and I feel quiet that day.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get into much more of your story later on in this episode. But one thing that you said, and we'll after the break, we'll get into a little bit more of your backstory. But you said that you struggle with runs and with speech issues, and that just like me and our fellow over 6 million athletes across the globe, a lot of us have different challenges, but we have kind of like what you just touched on a little bit in your introduction is we also share a lot of the same challenges. So thanks for that that overview introduction to your story. And after so a lot of us kind of myself included share a lot of the some similar challenges with pre-involvement, pre-athletic and leadership involvement in Special Olympics. We struggled with friends and have speech issues, but thanks to the power of sport, the power of the leadership programs that come within the Special Olympics movement, we are able to really have a better life. And it's thanks to the inclusion revolution that we're able to have a better life. So we're going to get into much more of, and I forgot to add, should I ask before on how to pronounce your last name, but it's Daniel
Fundora. Yes, you got that right.
I got that right. Okay, awesome. So I know my last name is difficult to pronounce as well. So we're going to continue with after the break, hearing from Daniel backstory in Special Olympics, and later on in the show, his connection to the 2022 USA Games. I'm sure you guys all probably maybe could figure it out, but we'll let you all know exactly Daniel's involvement. Our guest is Daniel Fundora, Special Olympics Florida athlete leader. Daniel's story will continue after the break right here on SpecialChronicles.com. We'll be right back. Special Chronicles comes from listeners like you. As an independent public media podcast, Special Chronicles will always be there for you. Now we're asking you to be there for us. As a nonprofit independent media organization, we can only make programs like Special Chronicles with listener support. Our programs provide weekly, candid, honest, and inspiring conversations about the people with disabilities community that creates awareness, support, and advocacy within each week's episode. Listeners tell us our shows are an enjoyable and necessary podcast for the intellectual and developmental disability community and everyone else who is able to listen to stories about life from a different angle. Please, if you and your family love our weekly podcast, make a one-time, monthly, or annual gift of thanks today. Support this podcast at SpecialChronicles.com/give. That's SpecialChronicles.com/give. Our guest on the Special Chronicles Show this week is Daniel Fundora, Special Olympics Florida athlete leader. And now you gave us, Daniel, in the first segment, it's more of a pre-first segment. A pre-first, because this is the first official segment, but I guess, yeah, what's called first segment. Anyways. In that, an overview of your story. But now let's get into having you tell us a little bit more about your backstory and tell us about your early years growing up with a disability. Because just like you, I also have a lot of developmental delays and speech issues and struggled with friends. So tell us about some of the your early years growing up with a disability and pre-involvement with Special Olympics.
Of course.
Early years.
I have a lot to say about it, but I'm not going to get too much details, but I'm going to give it, I know what I remember before Special Olympics. So I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity and just say, well, it's not just I deal with speech problems or hard to make friends, but I really don't like to admit, but I used to be bullied as well. I used to be victimized and bullied. And what happened is, right, when you became bullied or victim and bullied, that's how you lose confidence. And I lost confidence like that. And it's like you have a hard time direction where I wanted to go. And I used to make bad decisions and what else, bad behavior. And, I know it's really tough back then, and it's kind of hard to, connect with your family, friends, and, because I know I've been through a lot since. But before Special Olympics, I gotta say one thing. I used to take martial arts when I was 10 years old through 14 years old. And don't get me wrong, I had confidence myself. But until then, when that happened, when they snapped, right? When you call bully, that's how you lose friendship. That's how you lose confidence. And I know it's really a negative part, but it's not just that. The only thing what really struggled me the most is the overweight when I used to eat the junk foods, not eat unhealthy habits like burgers and chips and bread and cookies and sugary. And I used to be all this bad, Oh my gosh, yeah. I have some different, like before Special Olympics, I have struggled with leadership and I have a struggle making decisions as well. And I have to say, I did make some bad decisions and overweight, speech problems. And, that's what happened before Special Olympics.
Awesome. Well, let's now continue with our guest is Daniel Fundora, Special Olympics Florida athlete leader. Let's now get into a little bit more about your backstory. And as we all know, because of our disability, because of the intellectual and the developmental delays and because of the disability that you and I and our fellow over 6 million athletes across the globe were diagnosed with, we have challenges, but then we also have joys and accomplishments that come because of the disability. I'm sure for a lot of our listeners who may just be meeting somebody thanks to this podcast, thanks to this platform on Special Chronicles, for the first time meeting somebody with challenges, we'll kind of see that, okay, because of your disability, because of our disability, the challenges that we have because of our disability is the obvious, but then also those joys and accomplishments, like the countless gold and countless medals that we get in Special Olympics that you and I and fellow athletes get, but those joys and accomplishments that come because of the disability that we were diagnosed with. So I say that to say, share with us a little bit about, you talked a little about some of the challenges, but share with us now a little bit more about some of the challenges, but also the joys and accomplishments because of your disability.
My biggest accomplishment, I will have to say, just because of disability, I don't let autism define me by doing things that I was able to accomplish. You see, for example, I became a certified personal trainer. And what else? I had done lots of better things by helping others when it comes to health and fitness. And I was able to accomplish the doing things I wanted to do. I was able to travel around the world. I was able to become improvement independence. And I was able to, get in many certifications. And I was able to work as a soccer coach. And I was able to do many things. Let me just remind you something, Mr. Daniel.
Yeah.
I will have to say one thing. One of my major life accomplishments was going back 2017 when I was part of the TED Talks called Skate the Label. And that was one of my biggest accomplishments.
Tell us a little bit more about that. I would love for the opportunity to give a TED Talk, but tell us about that a little bit more about back in 2017, speaking at a TED Talk.
You mean how do I get involved with TED Talk?
Yeah, and
Sure.
how did you get involved in just briefly? Yeah.
Sure. Before a TED Talk, it was coming the opportunity for Best Buddies, and I almost think that I was not going to do it because if I did not choose to do it, my life would have been bad and all this stuff would be regretted. But I chose as well because I want to be able to tell the story about what the skate the label means, about skate the disability. I was able to skate by doing a weight loss. My biggest life accomplishments, it will have to be the weight loss too, because it helped me really, really make the difference. Take a time to commit with the fitness and take a time with the healthy habits, understand mental health. And let me just remind something else too. I also weight loss when I'm doing the stand-up paddle, able to do basketball. And most of all, I have a really great best performances in soccer when I was playing for the goalkeeper for Special Olympics.
Awesome. And you briefly mentioned stand-up paddle, and I think that in the next segment after our next break, we'll get into that because that ties in. That has something to do with the USA Games, the 2022 USA Games for Special Olympics, all national games here in the United States. So we'll get into that a little bit more after the break. So a good kind of good tease for listeners. But now, let's now share with us. You mentioned some of the joys and accomplishments, and it's a good transition now to tell us about some of the highlights of some of your life experience. Yeah, I think that TED Talk that you said is a good highlight, and you said that in addition to fitness and weight loss, mental health also kind of has a role to play in that. And I think that is a kind of a good. Those are the new strong minds discipline with our healthy athletes and our health programs. But I think that you said that TED Talk was and being a certified athletic trainer is some good highlights. But share with us now just briefly on some of the highlights of your life experiences. Is there any additional highlights from your life experiences in addition to the TED Talk and certified athletic trainer that you want to highlight for us briefly?
So right now, I mean, not what I knew, but I want to be able to, to one of my biggest life moments I have is, I want to be able to, not just for myself, but able to spend more time with the family I have and able to spend more time with the friends that I can definitely be more helpful as well and more like a resource and help others. Because like I said, when someone's there for life, like a friends, you may be like a best friend and they're more like a family to me,
Yeah.
And especially Special Olympics is also part of like a family. It's like I say to myself, no matter what I go, even if I'm not playing sports anymore, right? Special Olympics are always going to be part of my life for the rest of my life.
Awesome. Great. And now moving on, this next topic is we're going to get to briefly because it's a good, this next topic is a good transition, but we're going to take another break in just a few moments. So we have just 3 minutes until our next break, but it's a good transition to in the next couple of segments of this episode. This is episode 40. Our guest is Daniel Fundora, Special Olympics Florida athlete leader. But we'll get into a little bit more about your experiences in Special Olympics. So tell us briefly, and again, we only have about 2 minutes. So tell us briefly in just about in less than 2 minutes, how has your life experiences and Special Olympics experiences shaped the person that you are today?
I was able to overcome these kind of adversities by Special Olympics. To me, this is not just for competing sports or helping communities or athlete leadership. For me, it meant to be a self-improvement development, personal growth. It really helped me where I wanted to go. Like no matter what path I go to, I want to take that career to the next level. Because what happened is, since I love the sport as a hobby, I kind of doing a translation to the career, the next level, because I have very passion for it between sports and fitness. And this is the reason why that I took that route. And it really helped me make a difference and really helped me be a better person than I am today.
Awesome. So that's a good transition. And we're going to get in after the next break, get into a lot more. We're going to get into much more of Daniel's story. Not this Daniel, the host and founder of Special Chronicles, but our guest, Daniel Fundora. We'll get into much more of Daniel's story with sports and involvement in Special Olympics, his connection with the upcoming 2022 USA Games, and talking about inclusion and athlete leadership near the end of the program when we return. But first, just there's a lot of it's amazing when people hold at the beginning of this episode and hearing about the challenges that you have had before you got involved in Special Olympics, and now what people will hear in the next segment after this next break. When people hear about the power that sport and leadership and health programs that you and even myself and other athletes are involved in want to become involved within the Special Olympics movement, it's amazing that power of the sports and health and leadership programs really has the power to transform our lives, has the power to change our lives for the better, and really get off the sidelines and really break down those walls, those barriers that we have. So it's really hopefully I know from talking with you even before we were on air and now on air, hearing your story is so impactful, and I'm sure our listeners will continue to be impactful as we continue after the break, hearing much more of your story. Much more of Daniel Fundora, Special Olympics Florida athlete leader. Daniel's story continues after the break right here on the Special Chronicles Show on SpecialChronicles.com when the podcast continues after the break right here on SpecialChronicles.com. The Special Chronicles Show, this episode is brought to you by StreamYard. StreamYard is the easiest way to create professional live streams. StreamYard is a live streaming studio in your browser. Interview guests, share your screen, and much more. Stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other platforms. Sign up for StreamYard and get $10 in credit with our referral link at SpecialChronicles.com/StreamYard tutorial. Again, that's SpecialChronicles.com/StreamYard tutorial, all one word. StreamYard is what we're using for the live shows and the video. If you're watching the video show right now on YouTube and Facebook, StreamYard is what we're using. It's how we're connected to our guest right now. All of us at Special Chronicles love StreamYard, and so I definitely recommend. Please, the link will be in the show notes in the description below. SpecialChronicles.com/StreamYard tutorial. We love StreamYard, and hopefully you all will go and check it out. Our guest this week on the Special Chronicles Show on the road to 2022 USA Games is Special Olympics Florida athlete leader Daniel Fundora is joining us on the program today. Welcome back, Daniel. And now this is the next segment of the show where we get into talking all about Special Olympic sports. And we'll get to in the next segment all about athlete leadership programs. And we don't have enough time in this episode to talk about health, but maybe we'll have to have you back on the program to talk about you, Joni, as a I don't know if you're a health messenger, but are you?
Yes, I am. I am a health messenger.
So maybe we'll have to have you back on the podcast to talk about. Because I just got trained as a health messenger, so maybe we'll have to have you back on to talk about health topics or stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll have to have you back. But anyways, let's now continue on with your story. People who kind of got an overview of your backstory and your life experiences and your accomplishments because of the disability that you were diagnosed with, because of the autism that you were diagnosed with. So now let's get into and tell us about how you first got involved in Special Olympics Florida.
Okay, sure. When I got involved with Special Olympics Florida, I didn't have no expected. I'll say it again. I want to say, yeah, when I joined Special Olympics, right, I just want to see if this is going to be it for me. I want to see if Special Olympics can be, to see if I can stay in that program longer. And then what happened was, it all changed almost about a year or maybe like about 10 or 12 months later. Let's say that when I have a chance to play softball at the state competition, which is at ESPN Worldwide Sports, which is that we held in 2022 USA Games. I have to say one thing with softball is like after I went to games, when I received a gold medal, I was like, my life has changed forever because I feel quiet that day, and I was born to be a champion. It's like, to be really honest, it's like I did not expect it to win this kind of medal. And I know I'm not the only one whose life changed, but it's just something happens as part of me, and I got to go with myself playing sports since. And during my time, I need to make it my possible second about it. During my time in Special Olympics, I know I'm still a little bit struggling at the time. After what Special Olympics, life has changed, right? When I still overweight, right? And then a couple of years later, right? Why do I make my time to commit myself to do a fitness and health? Because I know how important this is. And I realized that Special Olympics isn't just offering the sports, that has something to do with health. And what happened is You know what would happen is if I continue overweight, my life would have been with injuries. And you know what the doctors will have told me, right? The more I eat, the more I will get into myself medication. But you know what the good news is? It's a good thing that when I lost weight, right, it took me almost about a year to make it happen.
Mhm.
And it took me you want to know how much pounds that I lost? 65. I lost 65
Awesome.
pounds through the health, through the sports, through the fitness, and especially, it was the mental health as well. Why mental health? Because it has something to do with sleep. It has something to do with stress levels and everything about behaviors. It's
Awesome.
everything when it comes to health.
Awesome. Well, we mind all listeners. I think you touched on a few of the sports that you compete in. I know for myself, I compete in swimming and basketball, and hopefully soon unified golf. But tell us what some of the sports I think you said, which I haven't heard of, stand up water,
Stand up paddleboard,
stand up paddle, which might be
flag football,
which might be
basketball, soccer, and I'll say golf, of course. And by the way, I almost forgot to remind something. I also a coach for bowling.
Awesome.
And I also plan to be a coach for soccer as well.
Awesome. And I think what's unique to probably your state, I don't know how many other states across the United States, across the U.S. have stand-up water paddle.
Stand up paddle.
Stand-up paddle. That's what it is. I might have to update the show notes because I think I got that wrong. Stand-up. It's called. Let me write it down. It's called the stand-up paddle. Is that what it's called?
Paddleboard. Yep.
Stand-up paddle board. Okay. So I think that might be a unique. Correct me if anybody from Special Olympics International is listening. Let me know if Florida is the only program that has stand-up water paddleboard. So what do you enjoy about your involvement with Special Olympics, with all the sports and athlete leadership that you are in health that you are involved in? What do you enjoy most about Special Olympics?
What I really enjoyed the most is I was able to get together with friends, play on the same team, and it was like the best moment of all is like I have so many joyful moments. Like besides USA Games, besides going to the World Games, I know the best moment is like nothing you can compare is when the light changed when first gold medal in softball. I know that's like the best moment I ever have. But I know there's so many cherished moments that I've done, and I know I have so many great moments with Special Olympics when there are times that I did win the gold medal. Well, sometimes it's not just about winning the gold medal. It's not always about winning. Sometimes win and lose, we get together, have a joyful season, and the best of all, we want to make sure the season sports turn out to be great and happy ever after, because after you've been trained hard and, that's what we came about. And let me just remind something. We able to overcome the adversity. We are proud that we able to accomplish. It's by committing ourselves, sacrifice, and it's all about the inclusion.
Yeah, well, and it's what our athlete oath is, which is let me win. But if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. And I think you kind of summed it up awesomely. What you just said about how one of the things that you enjoy most about Special Olympics, and I can relate as well. I'm sure our fellow athletes can relate as well, is getting together with friends, and that's a good kind of flip side to what you said at the top of the program today about how that you before you got involved in Special Olympics, you like myself and other athletes have struggled with friends, but because of Special Olympics, you're able to through the multitude of and variety of sports and leadership programs able to really make friends. I know I have both locally here in Illinois Been able to make friends across my state, but then also as a Southern Survival International Global Messenger, I have tons of other friends from as far away as Great Britain and Brazil and Zimbabwe and Pakistan and so many other friends across the globe because of Special Olympics. This is a good transition. Well, I guess it's kind of a good thing. You mentioned that you competed at the World Games, and we don't have a lot of time to get into that part of your story. But tell us briefly, which World Games did you compete? Was it 2019 Abu Dhabi or?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I did not compete in the World Games 2019, but I did participate in the final leg for the World Games, and I was part of the opening ceremony. The best part about the World Games is able to see the opening ceremonies where athletes cross the globe, and I see there was a big ceremony, and there was like a biggest ceremony, and then ever since then, I feel very life-changing right here, and I feel empowerment, and also Abu Dhabi, it was a really amazing trip,
So in Abu Dhabi, you competed in the final leg of the torch run, and that was amazing. I don't know if you saw a ton of us as IGMs on stage, but all during the opening ceremony, we were actually on stage during the opening ceremony. Let's now get into briefly. We've got just about 3 minutes until our next sponsor break, and then we'll get into your involvement with athlete leadership programs after the next break. But first, I recently saw and again, I'm kind of new to this whole TikTok thing, but I recently saw a recent TikTok video that you posted on TikTok, but you posted it on your Facebook page, answering a question about the 2022 USA Games. So now, for the first time on any podcast, tell our listeners the big news about you and the upcoming Special Olympics 2022 USA Games happening in Orlando, Florida.
Sure. I just want to let you know, as far as everybody from across the globe, from Special Olympics, I am going to anticipate for the 2022 USA Games as an athlete for stand-up paddle. And by the way, let me just remind something. This is not the first time that I've been to USA Games. I've been to USA Games since 2018, where they do stand-up paddle, and they start off 5 athletes from the state of Florida.
And I think that actually gets into one of the next things I was going to ask you about. If 2022 in Orlando, that's the first time that stand-up paddle was the first time that it's being offered in 2022. But I think, if I'm mistaken, I think I remember hearing that in 2018 in USA Games in Seattle, that was the first time that stand-up paddle was offered, right?
Yes, they took place at Angie Lake. And that was like a one of the kind experience. And you know how many states were there? Not just Florida, Alabama, Texas, North Carolina. South Carolina.
A lot of the southern states in the U.S. compete. So basically, any state that is near a big body of water, also joined you in participating in the stand-up paddle. So I feel like we could do it in Illinois. We have in Chicago, we have Lake Michigan. So I maybe I'll have to bring that back to some of my athletes here and see if we could do it. I don't know exactly, but we'll see if we can bring that up. We gonna take another break in just a few moments, so we don't. I think we're gonna continue talking about your. Because this is such a big part of your story of your second time competing at the upcoming 2022 USA Games in Orlando in stand-up paddle. So we're going to continue this after the break, and then we'll get into athlete leadership and some wrap up stuff near the end of the program. Our guest is Daniel Fundora, Special Olympics Florida athlete. Daniel's story on the road to 2022 USA Games in Orlando continues after the break right here on SpecialChronicles.com. And when the podcast continues right here, we'll hear much more about his advice and comment on the excitement of going to the 2022 USA Games when the podcast continues right here on SpecialChronicles.com. Don't hit pause. We'll be right back. Support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd. Special Chronicles is proud to partner with the ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program. The Energy Force is the country's first energy efficiency education program designed for and taught by people with disabilities. ComEd is powering lives and really is powering us here at Special Chronicles to keep the lights on and our technology is powered on. As ComEd powers the lives of us, they're literally giving a voice to people with special needs. We thank ComEd for the generous support of our mission at Special Chronicles. Learn more at SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. That's SpecialChronicles.com/ComEd. Our guest on the Special Chronicles Show this week is Daniel Fundora, Special Olympics Florida athlete leader. And what better way to kick off our on the road to 2022 USA Games than an athlete from the home state of where the next USA Games will be taking place. As it's almost like we planned to kick off the series with you, Daniel, but let's just say that we did plan to kick off the series with you. It just I'm actually glad that you reached out and that we originally got connected 6-7 months ago. And before the break, you told us about the big news of that you're going to be competing in stand-up paddleboard at the upcoming 2022 USA Games in Orlando. So tell us now what you enjoy about this. This is, I think, within the past few years, was a relatively new sport within Special Olympics. So tell us what you enjoy most about stand-up paddleboard.
What I really enjoy stand-up paddle the most is like the best part about paddleboard is like you could paddle anywhere. Besides the beach, you could paddle between the lakes or even the ocean as well. You could do the paddleboard practice. And it's a really amazing opportunity. And you know, I always wanted to do a paddleboard. I always want to do it in the mountain lake. But either way, I would like to say this paddleboard is a definitely wonderful sport for those athletes need discipline. And this is like similar to swimming, right? But at the same time, I'm going to say to the athletes, if you love swimming, then you may love stand-up paddle. It's kind of like just like kayaking.
Awesome. Well, now tell us when you first heard when it was first announced that you were going to be competing at the USA Games. Was there a celebrity ambassador that first told you that you're going to be competing at the USA Games, or was it one of your Special Olympics Florida staff that told you to tell us about that moment when you were first told that you're going to be competing at the 2020?
This is my funny story. Here's a funny story. I was coming back home from Jacksonville trip, from the weekend getaway trip, right? And I just got to receive a phone call from Special Olympics staff to say, "Oh, coming to the Zoom-in." And I say, "Hey, is it about bowling?" And then the next day, what did I say? 2:00 p.m., right? They asked me to come to the Zoom-in to find out what it is about. I said, "Hey, do I'm in trouble or something?" I was like, "No." That kind of like, I kind of figured to myself saying, isn't it about the USA Games? And then when I got into the Zoom-in, they were saying, "Hey, we announced that you are officially selected to the 2022 USA Games." And I was like, I freaking knew it. I was like, I knew it this whole time, you know. I was very, very excited. And you know how many athletes are going to be participating at this time? There's going to be like about 18 athletes. Are going to be in the state of Florida. They'll be represented in the state of Florida stand-up paddle.
Awesome. And how many, again, remind us again, how many in the state of Florida?
For for athletes that are going to participate in stand-up paddle?
Yeah.
18.
18. Well, let's now move on. We've got just a little bit of time left. What advice do you have for our fellow athletes to compete at the USA Games?
I'm going to say, you want to go out there and put your best ability, and just one thing. It is a once-in-a-lifetime event. So you want to put your best performance, you want to put your best discipline, train hard, and go out there and committed to play like a champion.
Awesome.
And not just that, make sure it's all about inclusion. And that's what we're going to show in the 2022 USA Games. We're going to make sure, especially during this time, we want to show the world that we can do it, that we show that disability does not define who we are. Who we define as a champion, and we're all about inclusion.
Awesome. I love that. Really showing the people across the USA, across our nation, that we are all about being a champion and all about inclusion, and really putting our challenges, putting our disability challenges off to the side, pushing that wall of exclusion down, and really stepping up and showing people just how we are a champion too. We are all about inclusion and being being unified and being a champion. Tell us briefly now about how you folks got involved in the athlete leadership. We're going to now kind of bypass our next break and talking about athlete leadership programs. So tell us about how you folks got involved in our athlete leadership programs.
I got involved in athlete leadership is because I need to experience it. I need to be showing the self-improvement to be a leader. And since I got with a mentor, right, I asked what I wanted to do. And I would say I had to measure. His name is David. He's one of my mentors. He's been a long time Special Olympics. He was my very first coach for softball. This guy really helped me showing what Special Olympics is about, and helped really understand what Special Olympics is about. So I tell you this: when I took the athlete leadership, my first route was becoming a coach, which is bowling, softball, and now I'm able to do soccer. And then the other one, the other specialized athlete leadership that I was planning to take it is health messenger. I was able to travel to Indianapolis. That was the day of my birthday a couple years ago. And
awesome.
and now the next step I'd like to take for athlete leadership is to able to become a global messenger, because we want to show what Special Olympics and show what unique abilities is totally all about with inclusion.
Absolutely. Let's move on now, and we've got just a little bit of time left. So what advice do you have, just briefly, in about a minute or less? I know I wish we had more time, but we'll have to have you back on the podcast. So tell us briefly, what advice do you have for our fellow athletes to participate in athlete leadership programs? If you had any advice to share to any other athletes that might not be involved in our leadership programs, what advice do you have for them?
I have to say, for all the athletes, athlete leadership programs may not be for everyone, but if those athletes are dedicated, this is for the athletes who are most dedicated and passionate for Special Olympics, and they want to become a coach like the next generations and be inclusion, then that's leadership is for you. Make it work. Make it happen.
Awesome. Let's now move briefly on and tell you, what does being an athlete leader mean to you? What does being an athlete leader mean to you?
Athlete leader means to me, it means to be a self-improvement and help me educate myself to be a better leader, take a lot of responsibilities, and be a loyalty when I'm doing as a leader, and make the best decision that I can be, that I can apply to real life experiences.
Awesome. And now we've got just about 5 minutes left, and we're going to come to a close with a few final thoughts. and we'll let you know how you all can get involved in Special Olympics Florida, but more importantly, how you can get involved with the upcoming 2022 USA Games, as well on the road to the 2022 USA Games with Special Olympics Florida athlete Daniel Fundora is our guest today on the Special Chronicles Show on SpecialChronicles.com. What advice, Daniel, do you have for fellow over 6 million Special Olympics athletes across the globe? What advice would you give them to compete at the local national games?
Local national games.
What advice?
I would just say you want to be as humble. You want to put your best sportsmanship, and you want to go out there and able to perform in a higher level. But you want to show at the end of the day, we all wanted to have fun, and we all wanted to be putting the best discipline, the best game out there, and the most importantly is, for all the athletes across the globe, for those are going to anticipate to the USA Games, I would say, for your best ability, I wish you the best luck, and let's go out there and let's change the world, change for the better, for making a difference, because we're here to cross the globe, and like I say, we all teen and inclusion, and we're going to go out there and do what we can do to win it all. Because we all winners, we're going to play like winners.
Absolutely. And if our listeners want to connect and if we have listeners across the U.S., across the globe that are listening to this podcast right now, but if anybody wants to get involved with your program, Special Olympics Florida, where can they go to get involved in Special Olympics Florida?
Yep.
For the podcast listeners, it's SpecialOlympicsFlorida.org. But more importantly, if people want to get involved with the upcoming 2022 USA Games, you can go to 2022 SpecialOlympicsUSAGames.org. Once again, that's 2022 SpecialOlympicsUSAGames.org to learn more and how you can get involved as a volunteer, fan, sponsor, however you want to get involved. 2022 SpecialOlympicsUSAGames.org. Use the hashtag ShineAs1. I believe that's what it says behind me. ShineAs1. So go and get involved. Any final thoughts, Daniel, that you want to share with our listeners before? Wait. If people want to get in touch with Special Chronicles, you can, what I'm doing when I'm not behind the microphone, at PodmanDan, PodmanDan, at PodmanDan. And if you want to get involved and subscribe to our newsletter and all of our podcasts, SpecialChronicles.com is where you can go. Daniel, any final thoughts on your overall time here today on the Special Chronicles Show that you want to share with our listeners?
I just want to say I want to thank you, Daniel, for taking me time to take opportunities for the Special Chronicles and able to follow up about the message for the USA Games, my story for those athletes may or may not know, and I think it's very important to hear the story and also very important since we're getting back to the normal activities as what's going on right now in phase 3. And I'm really excited for this. I'm really blessed this opportunity, and I'm really blessed that I did got chosen for USA Games. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity, and I just wait for, because life is a journey, and you got to take what it's worth, and it's all about hard work and dedication, and I'm just waiting to take the community back, and I'm just waiting to go all in for an inclusion at the USA Games.
Awesome. And speaking of going all in with inclusion, that's a great way of how I always end a lot of these podcasts and conversations with talking about inclusion. And so I'm going to do the same thing with you as we come to a close and asking you the same thing. What does inclusion mean to you?
It means we have the rights that we can do whatever desires with the goals, and we have the right to be independent. We have the right to participate in any other activities. We have, let's say, for example, we have the right to get a job. We have the right to get married. We have the right to get a home. We have the right to be everything what we want to do. And like, say, for example, everybody has the right to go to school. Everybody has the right to do anything what they decided to do. And that's like the passion of it. And just one thing, it doesn't really matter if you have a disability or not. The only thing that matters is you want to go out there and be inclusive to anyone you know. It's all about unconditional love. Because I can tell you one thing, I really believe you only live once, and it's time to leave the legacy.
Awesome. Perfect way to conclude this episode. And that's a wrap, everyone. The Special Chronicles Show is presented by the ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program. Learn more about the nation's first energy efficiency education program taught by people with disabilities at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. Again, at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. And help us fund our weekly podcast if you want to help us fund, but also if you want to remember to rate and review, do what you do with these podcasts. SpecialChronicles.com, subscribe to the newsletter, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio app, and wherever you get your podcasts. Rating goes a long way. You can find all the links. Go to SpecialChronicles.com, click on podcasts, and you can go. And if you want to email us, you can go ahead and do so. It is feedback at SpecialChronicles.com. The link will be in the show notes. Let's just go with that. It's been a joy having our guest has been Daniel Fundora, Special Olympics Florida athlete leader. We have been on the road to the 2022 Special Olympics USA Games happening in Orlando. And we will continue this series in the spring of 2022 leading up to those national games. So I hope you have enjoyed Daniel's story. I know I have enjoyed and been impacted. So looking forward to having Daniel on again. And that's the wrap. We'll see you next week with talking about athletes at home, fitness at home. We've got a two-part podcast coming the next couple of weeks. So you do not want to miss that. So stay subscribed to this podcast. We'll see you next week right here on the Special Chronicles Show on SpecialChronicles.com. And until next time, remember, choose to include.
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.